She stood at his safe at 11:47 p.m., her trembling fingers on the dial, and he caught her on camera watching everything crumble in real time. Harrison Caldwell's home office in Greenwich smelled of expensive bourbon and leather furniture, the kind of room where billion-dollar deals got made over handshakes. At this hour, the house should have been silent, empty. But his phone buzzed with a security alert that made his blood freeze. Motion detected. Study. 11:47 p.m. He pulled up the camera feed on his phone, and there she was. Isabella Reyes, his housekeeper of 6 months. The woman he'd trusted despite every instinct screaming not to trust anyone. Her hand rested on his safe dial, turning it with careful movements. Left, right, left again. She knew the combination. Harrison's chest tightened. Not her. Anyone but her. He was in his car within 2 minutes, racing the 15-minute drive from downtown. His hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. The betrayal cut deeper than his former business partner's theft attempt 3 years ago. That had been expected. Sharks circling money. But Isabella? She'd seemed different. Honest. Real. He burst through the front door at 12:03 a.m. "Get out!" The words exploded from him before he reached the study. She spun around, her face pale, eyes wide. The safe door hung open behind her. "Mr. Caldwell, please listen." "Shut up." His voice came out low now, dangerous. "You know what you've done." She stepped forward, hands raised like she was approaching a wounded animal. "You don't understand. There's something—" "I understand perfectly." He pulled out his phone. "Security will be here in 3 minutes. Whatever you took, whatever you were planning—" "I wasn't stealing." Her voice cracked. Tears streamed down her face. "Someone's going to kill you. Wednesday. Tonight. I had to." Enough! He couldn't look at her. 6 months of morning coffee she'd brought him without being asked. The way she'd smiled when he'd mentioned her daughter getting into Columbia. The electricity he'd felt every time they'd accidentally touched. All of it poisoned now. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. "Escort Ms. Reyes off the property, immediately." "Mr. Caldwell, please." She struggled as they gripped her arms. "Mitchell is—" "I said enough." They hauled her toward the door. She twisted back, desperate. "Check your security system. Check Mitchell's files. Please, just—" The front door slammed shut, cutting off her words. The study felt smaller with his rage filling it, mahogany walls closing in as the security monitor replayed the footage. Her hand on his safe, turning the dial with practiced precision, the one act that destroyed everything between them. Harrison sank into his desk chair. His hands shook. For 6 months, he'd watched her move through his home with quiet grace. He'd noticed things he shouldn't have noticed. The curve of her neck when she reached to dust-high shelves. How her laugh sounded when she talked to her daughter on the phone, thinking no one could hear. The way his breath would catch when she'd bring him lunch during long work sessions, her fingers brushing his as she set down the plate. All lies. Have you ever been wrongly accused of something that cost you everything? When someone you respected looked at you like a criminal? Tell me in the comments how you survived that moment. As the taxi pulled away, Isabella clutched the box of her belongings, her phone buzzing with her daughter's messages. "You're not too stressed from work, right, Mom?" She couldn't answer. She couldn't tell her daughter that saving a billionaire's life had just destroyed theirs. 3 days earlier, she had overheard 2 words that would change everything. Wednesday midnight. Sunday afternoon, 2:47 p.m. Isabella pushed her cleaning cart down the East Wing hallway, the wheels squeaking on the polished hardwood. The mansion was quiet except for the distant hum of the HVAC system. Mr. Caldwell was in New York City for meetings. Most of the staff had the day off. She'd planned to finish the guest rooms, then head home early to help her daughter Sophia pack for her first semester at Columbia. 3 jobs for 6 years to save for this moment. The medical bills from Sophia's childhood illness had eaten through everything, but they'd made it. Finally. Isabella hummed softly. an old Spanish song her mother used to sing as she approached Mitchell Devereaux's office, the head of security. Always professional, always polite. She liked him more than most of the staff because he actually acknowledged her existence. His door stood slightly open. She was about to knock, ask if he needed his office cleaned, when his voice stopped her cold. Wednesday midnight. The window entries confirmed. Isabella froze. Her hand hovered inches from the door. No. Mitchell's voice stayed calm, measured. He'll be alone. Security system's already compromised. I've got the override codes. Her heart started pounding. Who was he talking about? The safe combination's the only thing left, Mitchell continued. Once I have those crypto passwords, we're looking at 340 million. Clean split, just like we discussed. Oh, God, Mr. Caldwell. The hallway outside Mitchell's office stretched endlessly, her cleaning cart blocking the door slightly ajar, his voice drifting through the crack like poison gas. Calm, measured, discussing murder like a business transaction. Isabella's hands gripped the cart handle. She needed to move, needed to leave before he noticed her, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The hired guy's reliable? Mitchell asked whoever was on the phone. Good, make sure he knows. Quick and quiet. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Yeah, I know Caldwell's paranoid. That's why Wednesday works. He's hosting that tech conference downtown until 11. Gets home around midnight, goes straight to his study. Routine never changes. Isabella finally moved. Slowly, carefully. Each step felt like walking through water. She didn't breathe until she'd turned the corner, her cart rattling as she picked up speed. Her mind raced. Should she call the police? Tell them what? That she'd overheard a vague conversation that might be about murder. She had no proof, no recording. Mitchell would deny everything, and she'd look crazy, paranoid. She'd probably get fired for making accusations against the head of security. But if she did nothing, Mr. Caldwell would die Wednesday night. Her mind flashed to Harrison working late in his study, shirt sleeves rolled up, jaw tight with concentration. Completely unaware someone wants him dead, the sudden fierce need to protect him surprises her with its intensity. She barely knew the man. He was her boss. Cold, distant, wrapped in walls of wealth and suspicion. He'd never been cruel to her, but he'd never been particularly kind either. She was staff, invisible, useful only for keeping his mansion clean. So why did her chest ache at the thought of him dead? Isabella spent Sunday night researching. She needed to understand what Mitchell wanted. The safe in Mr. Caldwell's study. Everyone knew about it. Staff weren't allowed within 10 feet of it. She'd signed papers during her interview specifically about that safe. But what was inside? She searched online for information about Harrison Caldwell's business. Tech company. Artificial intelligence patents. And there, buried in a 3-year-old article about a failed theft attempt, mention of cryptocurrency holdings. Sources close to Caldwell suggest he stores access passwords off-grid in a private safe. $340 million. Monday morning, Isabella returned to work like normal, cleaned the breakfast room, vacuumed the library, brought Mr. Caldwell his coffee at 9 a.m. Their fingers brushed when he took the cup, and she wondered if he noticed how her hand shook. "Thank you, Isabella," he said without looking up from his laptop. "You're welcome, sir." She wanted to scream, wanted to grab his shoulders and shake him. Someone's going to murder you in 3 days. Instead, she smiled and left his study. Tuesday night, she couldn't sleep. Sophia asked her twice what was wrong. "Nothing, Mija. Just tired." "You're working too hard." "Mom?" If only that was the problem. She researched for 48 hours straight, barely sleeping until she found it. Security footage archives accessible through the household server. If she could learn the combination, if she could move what Mitchell wanted before Wednesday midnight, maybe Harrison would live. Maybe she'd only lose her job instead of watching him die. The day she walked into his mansion for the interview, she promised herself one thing. Don't look him in the eyes. because men with that much money see people as objects, and she needed this job too badly to be seen. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on Isabella as she stood outside the massive iron gates of the Caldwell estate. She'd spent the morning at her other two jobs, diner shift from 5 to 9 a.m., then office building cleaning until noon. She had 20 minutes to make herself presentable for this interview. In the McDonald's bathroom, she'd changed into her best outfit. A navy blue blazer she'd found at Goodwill, black pants without any stains. She'd brushed her hair until it shined, pulled it back in a neat bun. Professional. Forgettable. Exactly what wealthy people wanted their staff to be. The gates opened automatically when she pressed the intercom button. The driveway stretched for what felt like a mile. The mansion came into view gradually, gray stone, tall windows, columns that belonged in a movie. This was old money trying to look humble. She'd cleaned enough rich people's homes to know the difference. A woman in her 50s met her at the front door, Mrs. Chen, the house manager. "Isabella Reyes?" "Yes, ma'am." "Follow me. Mr. Caldwell will see you in his office." They walked through rooms that could have housed her entire apartment 3 times over. Original art on the walls. Furniture that looked expensive to even breathe near. Everything perfect. Everything cold. His office smelled of leather and old money. Connecticut autumn light slanting through windows that cost more than her yearly rent, while he sat behind a desk that could have been carved from a single tree, every inch of him radiating controlled power. Harrison Caldwell looked younger than his 42 years. Dark hair with just enough gray at the temples to make him look distinguished. Sharp jaw. Eyes that missed nothing. He wore a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, no tie. Casual wealth. The kind of relaxed that cost a fortune. "Ms. Reyes, please, sit." She sat in the leather chair across from his desk, keeping her back straight, hands folded in her lap. "Don't fidget. Don't seem nervous." He studied her resume without speaking. The silence stretched. Isabella focused on breathing evenly. His gaze swept over her application, then up to her face. Clinical assessment that lasted 3 seconds too long, making her skin warm despite herself, before his expression closed like a vault door. "You're currently working 3 jobs." "Yes, sir." "Why do you need a 4th? Isabella hesitated. How much truth should she share? "My daughter's starting college soon. Medical bills from her childhood. I need the money." Something flickered in his eyes. Sympathy? Skepticism? It vanished before she could tell. "This position requires 40 hours a week. How will you manage 4 jobs?" "I'll quit one of the others, sir. This position pays more." He nodded slowly, stood up. "Let me show you the house. I need you to understand what you're agreeing to." She followed him through room after room. He moved with confidence, pointing out details. Where cleaning supplies were kept. Which rooms got used daily. The security cameras in every hallway. "I value my privacy, Miss Reyes. What you see, what you hear in this house, it stays here. You'll sign an NDA before you leave today." "I understand, sir." They reached his study. He stopped at the doorway, his expression hardening. "This room requires special attention. You'll clean it daily. But this," he pointed to a large safe built into the wall. "You never touch. You don't look at it. You don't ask questions about it. You stay at least 10 feet away from it at all times." His voice carried an edge that made her throat tight. This wasn't a request. It was a warning. "Yes, sir. I understand." "Do you?" He stepped closer, and suddenly the air felt thinner. 3 years ago, someone I trusted tried to rob me. Nearly destroyed everything I'd built. I don't trust easily, Miss Reyes. I won't tolerate any hint of betrayal. Isabella met his eyes then, broke her own rule, because she needed him to see her truth. "I need this job, Mr. Caldwell. I have a daughter depending on me. I'm not interested in your safe or your secrets. I just want to work hard, get paid, and give my child a better life." For a moment, something shifted in his face. The hardness cracked just slightly. He believed her, or wanted to. Good. He stepped back. Mrs. Chen will finish the tour. If you're still interested, the job is yours. As she signed the NDA, his hand brushed hers, passing the pen, accidental contact that sent electricity up her arm. She pulled back quickly, reminding herself, he's not a man, he's a paycheck. She'd repeat that lie for 6 months, until the night everything changed. For 5 months she watched him without watching, the way predators study prey, except she was hunting for the man beneath the armor, and she didn't understand why she cared. Harrison Caldwell was a creature of habit. Isabella learned this within the first week. 6 a.m. His bedroom light turned on. She'd be in the kitchen by then, starting coffee the way he liked it. Dark roast, no sugar, splash of cream. 6:45 a.m. He'd appear in the kitchen, already dressed for work. Suit and tie, hair perfect. He'd nod at her, take his coffee, disappear into his study. She'd bring him breakfast at 7:30. Scrambled eggs, wheat toast, fresh fruit. He'd thank her without looking up from his computer. Lunch at noon, dinner at 7 p.m. Both meals eaten alone at his desk unless he had business guests. The man lived like a machine. Efficient, cold, lonely. But Isabella noticed the cracks. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., he'd stand at the eastern window overlooking Long Island Sound, scotch in hand, staring at nothing for exactly 12 minutes before returning to work. A ritual of grief or regret she couldn't name but recognized in her bones. Some nights, she'd find him asleep at his desk when she came to collect dinner dishes. His guard would be completely down, his face younger in sleep, almost vulnerable. She'd stand in the doorway, watching him breathe, fighting the strangest urge to cover him with a blanket. Once, she entered his study to clean and found him asleep at his desk, head on his arms like a child, guard completely down. She stood frozen, wanting to touch his hair, to wake him gently, the impulse so strong she had to leave the room. Isabella told herself to stop noticing these things. He was her boss, nothing more, but her body didn't listen. When he'd brush past her in the narrow hallway between the kitchen and study, her skin would feel electric for minutes afterward. When he'd smile at something on his computer, rare, but it happened, her chest would tighten. When his voice softened, talking to someone on the phone, she'd pause in her cleaning just to listen. This was dangerous. Stupid. He was a billionaire. She was his housekeeper. They existed in different universes. Yet, she kept watching. She noticed he took his coffee black on stressful days, that he ran his hand through his hair when frustrated, that he only ate the strawberries from his fruit bowl, leaving the melon untouched, that he worked later on Thursdays because he had standing calls with overseas clients. She learned his body language like studying a foreign language, the set of his shoulders when a meeting went badly, the way his jaw tightened when his phone rang with calls he didn't want to take, the slight smile when he read news about his competitors failing. "Mom, you're distracted." Sophia's voice pulled Isabella back to the present. They sat in their tiny Bronx apartment, eating dinner at the wobbly table she'd owned since Sophia was 3. "Sorry, mija. Long day." "You're always tired lately." "Is the new job too much?" Isabella forced a smile. "No, it's fine. Good, actually. The pay is excellent." Sophia studied her with those sharp eyes she'd inherited from her father. "Is your boss nice?" "He's professional." "That's not an answer." Isabella laughed. "He's a good boss. Fair, pays well, doesn't ask for anything inappropriate." "But you don't like him." That was the problem. She did like him, more than she should. She liked the man she glimpsed when his armor cracked, the one who left anonymous donations to the local food bank. She'd seen the receipts once while cleaning his desk, the one who'd paid Mrs. Chen's husband's hospital bills without being asked, the one who'd saved a photo of his late mother on his phone, looking at it sometimes when he thought no one noticed. Harrison Caldwell was a good man buried under layers of fear and paranoia. Isabella wanted to dig him out. show him that life could be more than fortress walls and security cameras. But that wasn't her job, and it would never be her place. 3 weeks before overhearing Mitchell's phone call, something changed. Isabella was cleaning the upstairs hallway when Mr. Caldwell stopped her. He never stopped her. She usually moved through his house like a ghost. Invisible, efficient, gone. Isabella. She turned, surprised he'd used her first name. He usually called her Ms. Reyes. Yes, sir? He looked uncomfortable. Your daughter got into Colombia. Her heart stopped. How did you... I ran a background check when I hired you. Part of my security protocol. I noticed the medical bills from her childhood illness. The reason you work 3 jobs... Isabella's face heated. Her pride bristled at being investigated, analyzed, reduced to data in a file. But she kept her voice steady. Yes, sir. She'll start in the fall. That's impressive. Columbia's acceptance rate is under 4%. She's smart. Isabella's voice softened, thinking about Sophia. Smarter than I ever was. That's not true. Mr. Caldwell met her eyes directly for the first time in months. You learned English as a second language, escaped an abusive relationship, raised a daughter alone while working multiple jobs, and kept that daughter healthy despite impossible medical costs. That takes more intelligence than any Ivy League degree. The words hit her like a physical touch. He saw her, actually saw her, not as staff, but as a person, someone with a story, with struggles, with strength. Thank you, she whispered, not trusting her voice for more. He nodded, the moment passing as quickly as it came. His walls snapped back into place. Let me know if you need a reference letter for scholarships. I'm happy to provide one. He walked away before she could respond. The night before she overheard Mitchell's call, Harrison stopped her in the hallway. Your daughter got into Colombia, he said quietly. She hadn't told him she'd applied. The medical bills, he continued, from her childhood illness. They're why you work 3 jobs. He knew everything about her, and somehow that felt more intimate than any touch. She had 48 hours to do the impossible. Learn a combination guarded by biometric locks and security protocols, move a fortune without being caught, and save a man who'd never know, or lose everything trying. Monday night, 11:47 p.m. Isabella sat at her laptop in her bedroom while Sophia slept in the next room. The apartment walls were so thin she could hear her daughter's soft breathing through the cheap drywall. On her screen, the security system login page for the Caldwell estate. Her hands shook above the keyboard. This was crazy. Illegal. If she got caught accessing these files, she'd be fired immediately. Probably arrested. But if she did nothing, Harrison would die Wednesday night. She typed in her staff credentials. The system accepted them. Thank God Mrs. Chen had given all senior staff limited access for emergency purposes. Isabella navigated through folders, guest logs, perimeter cameras, internal cameras. There, study archive, hours of footage, months of it. She filtered by date, searching for times when Harrison had opened his safe. There were dozens of entries. He accessed it almost daily. She picked the most recent video from last Friday, clicked play. The angle showed his back as he approached the safe. His shoulders blocked most of the view, but she could see his right hand moving. She watched him turn the dial. Left. Stop. Right. Stop. Left again. Stop. The safe clicked open. Isabella's heart raced. She rewound the video, watched again. Slower this time. Focused on the subtle movements of his wrist, the timing between each turn. She grabbed a notebook, started taking notes. Left, approximately 3 full rotations, then stop. Right, approximately 2 rotations, then stop. Left, approximately 1 rotation, then stop. But that wasn't precise enough. She needed the exact numbers. Her bedroom became a war room at 2 a.m., laptop screen glowing blue against the darkness, security footage playing on loop, his fingers on the dial, her notebook filling with number sequences, coffee going cold beside her as dawn approached with merciless speed. She watched 20 different videos. Harrison opened his safe the same way each time, muscle memory making the movements automatic. But the camera angle never quite captured the exact numbers on the dial. Then she found it. A video from 3 months ago when he'd stood slightly to the left. The angle was different. She could see more of the dial face. She paused, zoomed in, enhanced the image quality. The numbers came into focus, blurry but readable. 18:36-9. Isabella wrote them down 3 times, committed them to memory, deleted her browser history, shut down her laptop. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone showed 3:17 a.m. In less than 24 hours, Mitchell would attempt to murder Harrison. She had the combination now. But what did she do with it? If she moved whatever was in that safe before Wednesday midnight, Mitchell's plan would fall apart. He'd show up, break in, find the safe empty. No murder necessary. There'd be nothing to steal. But Harrison would know someone had accessed his safe. The security logs would show entry. He'd review the footage, see her, and she'd be finished. Fired. Possibly arrested for theft, even if she hadn't stolen anything. Her daughter's face flashed through her mind. Sophia, excited about Colombia, about finally escaping the cycle of poverty that had defined Isabella's entire life. This job was supposed to make that possible. If Isabella lost it now. But Harrison's face flashed next. The rare smile when he found something in his safe that pleased him. The vulnerability when he slept at his desk. The unexpected kindness when he'd offered to write Sophia a recommendation letter. Watching him on camera for hours, she memorized more than combinations. The way his shoulders relaxed when he thought he was alone. How his hand moved to his neck when stressed. The rare half-smile when he found what he needed in that safe, learning his body language until she could read him like text. She knew this man now. Not the billionaire. Not the boss. The person underneath. Lonely, wounded, terrified of betrayal. He didn't deserve to die because his head of security was a monster. Tuesday morning, Isabella went to work like normal. She brought Harrison his coffee at 6:45. "Thank you, Isabella." "You're welcome, sir." She stood there a moment too long. He glanced up, questions in his eyes. "Is something wrong?" "Yes, everything. Someone's going to murder you tomorrow night, and I'm probably going to lose everything saving you." "No, sir. Just wanted to make sure you didn't need anything else." His expression softened slightly. "I'm fine. Thank you." She left his study before she did something stupid like cry. The rest of Tuesday passed in slow motion. Every time she saw Mitchell, her stomach twisted. He looked so normal, professional, polite. He had no idea she'd overheard his call, no idea what she was planning. Sophia called during Isabella's lunch break. "Mom, I'm so excited. 3 more months until Colombia." "I know. Baby, you don't sound excited." "I am, just tired." "You're always tired. Promise me you'll rest soon?" "I promise." She was lying. She wouldn't rest. Not until this was over. Wednesday morning, 16 hours before midnight. Isabella stood outside Harrison's study door at 5:30 a.m. He wouldn't arrive until 6:45. She had over an hour. More than enough time. Her hand raised to knock, to tell him everything, let him handle it properly, call the police, let them deal with Mitchell. Footsteps in the hallway behind her. She turned. Mitchell walked past, heading toward his office. He nodded politely, his smile friendly and empty. "Morning, Isabella." "Morning." He continued past, disappearing around the corner. Isabella's hand dropped from the door. If she told Harrison now, Mitchell would know. He'd disappear the evidence. Probably kill Harrison earlier. Accelerate the timeline. Hire a different assassin who'd come tonight instead of midnight. She couldn't risk it. Wednesday morning, 16 hours before midnight, she stood outside his study door, her hand raised to knock to tell him everything and let him handle it properly. Then Mitchell walked past, nodding politely, his smile friendly and empty. If she told Harrison now, Mitchell would disappear the evidence, maybe accelerate the timeline. Her hand dropped. She was committed. The safe's dial felt heavier than it should, each number a point of no return, and somewhere in the house, cameras were recording the exact moment her life ended. Wednesday, 11:32 p.m. Isabella stood outside Harrison's study door, listening. The mansion was silent. He'd left for the tech conference at 6 p.m. Wouldn't return until midnight or later. She had maybe 30 minutes. Her hands shook as she turned the doorknob. The study looked exactly as it always did. Desk organized. Books perfectly aligned on shelves. The safe built into the wall behind his desk, dark steel, imposing, forbidden. She moved quickly, no time for second thoughts. The dial felt cold under her fingers. She took a breath, remembered the numbers she'd memorized from the videos. 18, 36, 9. Left, 3 full rotations to 18. Right, 2 rotations to 36. Left, 1 rotation to 9. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What if she'd gotten the numbers wrong? What if the combination had changed since that last video? The safe opened with a whisper. Not a click or clang, just a soft exhalation, like the mansion itself was breathing out secrets. And inside, bathed in LED light, sat a small black device worth hundreds of millions, innocent as a phone charger. Isabella stared at it. So small, so ordinary-looking. This was what Mitchell would kill for? She reached in, grabbed the device. A cryptocurrency hardware wallet, according to her research. Every password Harrison needed to access $340 million stored on this thing the size of a USB drive. Her phone showed 11:41 p.m., 6 minutes until Mitchell's timeline. She closed the safe, careful to spin the dial back to 0, erasing evidence of entry. Then she ran. The library was 3 doors down. She'd chosen the hiding spot carefully. Behind the third bookshelf on the left wall, there was a loose brick. She'd discovered it months ago while cleaning, never mentioned it. The perfect place to hide something small. She pressed the wallet against her chest as she moved through the dark house, her heart thundering so loud she was certain he'd hear it through walls and floors, feel it through the security cameras. This strange intimacy of protecting someone who'd despise her for it. The brick came loose easily. She shoved the wallet into the gap, replaced the brick, pushed the bookshelf back into position. Done. 11:46 p.m. Isabella returned to the study, needed to make everything look normal. She straightened a book on Harrison's desk, adjusted his pen holder. "Get out!" The voice exploded from the doorway. She spun around, her whole body freezing. Harrison stood there, face twisted with rage. Still wearing his suit from the conference, his phone was in his hand, the security app open, showing her at his safe from 20 minutes ago. "Mr. Caldwell, please, listen." "Shut up." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "You know what you've done." "You don't understand." Tears started falling before she could stop them. "Someone's going to kill you. Tonight, I had to move." "Enough." He pulled out his phone. "Security will be here in 3 minutes." "Mitchell is planning to murder you." Her voice broke. "Wednesday midnight, that's tonight. He hired someone, I overheard him. I couldn't let..." I said enough. 2 guards appeared, large men in black uniforms. They grabbed her arms. "Escort Ms. Reyes off the property, immediately." "Mr. Caldwell, please." She struggled against their grip. "Check your security system. Check Mitchell's files. I'm telling the truth." "You're fired." The words hit harder than a slap. She stopped fighting, let them drag her toward the door. She'd just returned from hiding the wallet when his voice cut through the study like a blade. "Get out!" Every muscle in her body locked. She turned slowly, and there he stood in the doorway, his face a mask of rage and something worse. Profound disappointment. "Mr. Caldwell, please listen," she began, but he was already calling security, already destroying them both. "Have you ever saved someone knowing they'd hate you for how you did it? That crushing feeling when sacrifice looks like betrayal? Share your experience below." 72 hours after firing her, Harrison sat in his fortress surrounded by wealth that suddenly meant nothing, because the FBI had just explained how a woman earning minimum wage had saved his life while he'd treated her like a criminal. Saturday morning, 9:47 a.m. 3 days since he'd thrown Isabella out. Harrison sat in his study, staring at the safe. Nothing was missing. He'd checked immediately after she'd left. The cryptocurrency wallet sat exactly where it should be. So, what had she been doing? His phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Special Agent Rodriguez with the FBI. We need to speak with you immediately about a threat to your life." Harrison's stomach dropped. "What?" "We've arrested your head of security, Mitchell Devereaux, for conspiracy to commit murder. Your murder, specifically. Can we come to your residence?" The next hour passed in a blur. 2 FBI agents sat in his living room, laying out details that made his world collapse. Mitchell had been planning to kill him for months. Wednesday night had been the scheduled hit, a professional assassin hired to break through the eastern study window at 12:15 a.m. Quick and quiet, make it look like a robbery. The target was your cryptocurrency passwords, Agent Rodriguez explained. Mitchell had already compromised your security system. He had override codes for everything except the safe combination. "How did you catch him?" Harrison's voice sounded distant to his own ears. "Anonymous tip led us to intercepted communications between Mitchell and the hired killer. We arrested Mitchell Thursday morning. He's talking now, trying to reduce his sentence." "Who gave you the tip?" The agents exchanged glances. "We can't disclose that, but what we can tell you is this. Someone moved your cryptocurrency wallet Wednesday night, hid it in your library behind a loose brick in the third bookshelf. That action prevented the murder. Mitchell's hired man showed up at 12:15 a.m. as planned, found the safe empty, and left. No reason to kill you if there was nothing to steal." The FBI agent's words hit like physical blows. Hired killer. Window entry. That night specifically. Each phrase another stone in the weight of what he'd done to her, building higher until he couldn't breathe. Isabella. Oh, God. Isabella. "The person who moved the wallet," Harrison whispered. "It was my former housekeeper, wasn't it? Isabella Reyes." Agent Rodriguez nodded. "She apparently overheard Mitchell's plans. Instead of coming to you or law enforcement, which might have tipped him off, she took direct action. Clever woman." "I fired her." Harrison's voice cracked. "She tried to tell me and I threw her out, called her a thief." The agents left an hour later. Harrison sat alone in his study, the walls pressing in on him. He remembered the fear in her eyes when he'd screamed at her, how she'd flinched when security grabbed her arm, and now those memories twisted into something else, the desperate need to touch her gently, to erase every harsh word with tenderness he hadn't known he possessed. She'd saved his life, risked everything to save him, and he'd destroyed her for it. His paranoia, the thing he'd thought protected him, had nearly gotten him killed. Mitchell had been his most trusted employee. 5 years of loyalty, all a lie. Meanwhile, Isabella, whom he'd kept at arm's length, had been the only one who'd actually protected him. Harrison grabbed his phone, called his lawyer. "I need you to find someone. Isabella Reyes, last known address in the Bronx. I need it now." It took 3 days. 3 days of calling every contact he had. 3 days of guilt eating him alive. It took him 3 days to find her address. 3 days while she faced eviction, while her daughter cried herself to sleep, while Isabella sat in their apartment holding the final notice and wondering if saving a billionaire's life had been the worst mistake she'd ever made. When Harrison finally stood outside her door, he realized he had no idea what to say. The door to her world opened 6 inches, chain lock still engaged, and through that gap he saw everything his money had tried to insulate him from, and everything he'd thrown away. Tuesday afternoon. Harrison stood outside apartment 4C in a building that smelled like old cooking oil and mildew. Paint peeled from the hallway walls. The elevator hadn't worked. He'd climbed 4 flights of stairs. This was where Isabella lived, had lived for years. While working 3 jobs, while raising her daughter alone, while saving every penny for Columbia, he knocked, waited. The door opened slightly, chain lock still attached. A young woman's face appeared in the gap, early 20s, Isabella's eyes and cheekbones. "Who are you?" "My name is Harrison Caldwell. I'm looking for Isabella Reyes, your mother." The woman's expression hardened. "You're the one who fired her." "Yes, I need to speak with her. Please." "She doesn't want to talk to you." "Sophia, please." He'd learned her daughter's name from the background check. "I know what really happened. The FBI told me everything. Your mother saved my life and You threw her out like trash." Sophia's voice shook with anger. "She's been crying for 6 days straight. We're being evicted because she lost that job. Columbia's offering me financial aid, but it won't cover everything and Mom's too proud to ask for help, and you just destroyed us." The words hit him like fists. "I know. I'm sorry. That's why I'm here. To apologize. To fix this." "You can't fix it." Sophia started to close the door. "Sophia, who is it?" Isabella's voice came from inside the apartment. Sophia hesitated. "The billionaire." Silence. Then footsteps. Isabella appeared behind her daughter. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back messily, eyes red from crying, no makeup, old sweatshirt and jeans. She stood in the doorway wearing an old sweater and jeans, hair pulled back, no makeup, exhaustion bruising shadows under her eyes, and he'd never found anyone more devastatingly beautiful, the raw authenticity of her making his chest physically ache. "Mr. Caldwell." Her voice was flat, empty. "Isabella, please, let me explain." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she unhooked the chain, opened the door wider. 5 minutes. Her apartment was smaller than his walk-in closet, walls thin enough to hear neighbors arguing, autumn cold seeping through window cracks. But when she finally opened the door fully, it felt more like home than his 17-room mansion ever had. The living room held a couch with worn cushions, a small TV on a stand, pictures on the walls, mostly of Sophia at different ages, a few of an older woman who must have been Isabella's mother. Everything clean but old. Well-maintained but poor. On the kitchen counter, visible through the doorway, sat an eviction notice. Final warning, 2 weeks to vacate. Harrison's throat tightened. This was his fault. "The FBI came to see me," he started. "They explained everything. Mitchell, the murder plot, what you did to save me." Isabella didn't react, just stood with her arms crossed, waiting. "You tried to tell me, and I wouldn't listen. I was so convinced you were betraying me that I couldn't see the truth. I'm sorry, Isabella. I'm so deeply sorry." "Okay." Her voice stayed flat. "I want to make this right. Your job back, a promotion. I'll cover your rent, Sophia's tuition, whatever you need." Sophia moved to stand beside her mother, protective. Isabella shook her head slowly. "I don't want your money, Mr. Caldwell, but you need it. The eviction notice. I'll figure it out, I always do." "Why?" The word burst from him, frustration and confusion mixing. "Why would you save me after how I treated you?" "Why?" he whispered, voice breaking. "Why would you save me after how I treated you?" Isabella looked at him for a long moment, then said something that shattered every wall he'd built. "Because, Mr. Caldwell, you reminded me of my father." Her father built an empire from a food truck and died alone, suspicious of everyone including his own daughter, and she'd watched Harrison building the same prison brick by brick. Isabella gestured for Harrison to sit on the couch. Sophia remained standing, arms crossed, watching him like he might attack at any moment. "My father," Isabella began, her voice quiet, "came to this country with nothing. He sold tacos from a cart in Queens, worked 18-hour days for 20 years. By the time I was 15, he owned 3 restaurants. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable." She sat across from Harrison in a chair that looked ready to fall apart, her hands folded in her lap. Then someone tried to rob his main restaurant, held a gun to his head, took everything in the register. After that, my father changed. He installed cameras everywhere, hired security, started suspecting everyone, employees, suppliers, even family. Harrison listened, his chest tightening. He couldn't enjoy what he'd built anymore. Every success felt like a target on his back. He pushed people away, pushed me away. When I got pregnant at 19, he said I was trying to trap him into supporting me. When Sophia got sick and I asked for help with medical bills, he said I was using my daughter to manipulate him. Isabella's voice stayed steady, but tears gathered in her eyes. She spoke of her father while rain started hammering the windows, each word measured and painful. Her daughter Sophia beside her on the worn couch, and Harrison on the floor. He'd slid down without thinking, sitting on the cheap carpet looking up at them like someone who'd already learned the hardest lessons life offers. He died 3 years ago. Heart attack in his office. Alone. I found him the next morning when he didn't answer his phone. The last words we'd spoken were angry. He'd accused me of telling competitors his recipes. I told him I never wanted to see him again. A tear slipped down her cheek. Sophia put an arm around her mother. "When I started working for you," Isabella continued, "I saw the same thing happening. You were building the same walls my father built. Trusting no one. Seeing betrayal everywhere. Living in fear instead of living." When she reached the part about her father's death, her voice finally broke, one crack in her armor, and Harrison's hand moved toward hers without thinking, stopping inches away, hovering in the space between them, wanting permission he hadn't earned, the almost touch more charged than contact. "I couldn't watch someone else die that way," she whispered, "even if it meant losing everything. Even if you'd hate me for it. I couldn't let fear kill another person She stopped herself, looked away. Harrison's throat closed. "Another person you what?" "Nothing." "Isabella, please." She met his eyes. "Another person I cared about. I cared about you, Mr. Caldwell, despite everything, despite knowing I shouldn't. I saw the man you could be underneath all that fear, and I wanted you to survive long enough to become him." The room went silent except for the rain. Harrison's voice came out rough. "I don't know how to be that person." "I know. That's why I didn't just want your guilt money. Money doesn't fix what's broken in you. Only you can fix that." Sophia stood up suddenly. "I need to go to class." "Mom, you okay?" Isabella nodded. "I'm fine, baby." Sophia kissed her mother's forehead, glared at Harrison one more time, grabbed her backpack, and left. The door closed behind her. Now it was just the two of them. Harrison stayed on the floor. It felt right somehow. Her looking down at him vulnerable, stripped of every defense. "Tell me what to do," he said quietly. "Tell me how to fix this, how to fix me." Isabella wiped her eyes. "I can't fix you, Mr. Caldwell. You have to want to change. Not for me. Not because you feel guilty, but because you realize that living in fear isn't living at all." "I do realize that now." His voice cracked. "I've realized it every day since I watched you get dragged from my house." He offered her everything, her job back, a promotion, college paid for Sophia, the apartment lease covered. Isabella looked at him with something like pity. "I don't want your guilt money," she said quietly. "I want you to learn that walls don't protect you. They just make your world smaller." Then she asked him to leave, and he realized losing her twice might actually kill him. For 2 months, he tore down his empire brick by brick. Not the business, but the walls around his heart, trying to become someone worthy of a second chance he didn't deserve. Harrison started with the cameras. The day after leaving Isabella's apartment, he called his security company. "I want half the cameras removed. Living areas, personal spaces. Keep the perimeter security. Everything else goes. Sir, that would leave you vulnerable. Do it." The mansion felt naked without surveillance systems. Rooms suddenly vulnerable and somehow more alive, as if the house itself could finally breathe after years of holding its breath against invisible threats. Next, he changed his staff policies. No more NDAs unless legally required. No more background checks beyond standard employment verification. No more treating people like potential thieves. Mrs. Chen, the house manager, stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Mr. Caldwell, are you feeling all right?" "I'm feeling clearer than I have in years." He started therapy. Twice-a-week sessions with Dr. Patricia Kim, a psychologist who specialized in trauma and trust issues. "My father lost everything to a bad business partner when I was 12, Harrison told her during their third session. "We went from middle class to poverty overnight. I watched it destroy him. Watched him drink himself to death by the time I was 17. I promised myself I'd never be that vulnerable again." "So you built walls," Dr. Kim said. "Yes." "And how's that working for you?" Harrison laughed bitterly. "Almost got me killed. Did get me to fire the only person who actually protected me." "Tell me about Isabella." He thought about her constantly. Not just guilt, but the curve of her neck when she'd cleaned his study, the way she'd hummed softly thinking no one heard, how her entire face changed when she smiled at her daughter. Desire and regret mixing until he couldn't distinguish them. "She saw something in me I didn't know existed," he admitted. "Some potential for being human instead of just successful. And I threw it away because I was too scared to trust it. What are you going to do about that?" Harrison didn't answer right away. What could he do? She'd told him to leave, to fix himself first. So that's what he did. He started volunteering at the local food bank, anonymously, no press coverage, just work. Sorting donations, packing boxes, talking to people who reminded him where he'd come from. He reached out to employees he'd kept at arm's length for years. Actually learned their names, their stories. Mrs. Chen's husband had diabetes. His head groundskeeper had a son in the Navy. His accountant collected vintage records. Simple things. Human things. The kind of connections he'd avoided for decades. He started eating dinner in the kitchen instead of his study. Started leaving his office at reasonable hours. Started noticing how much life happened when you weren't working 18-hour days. But every change came back to Isabella. Everything he learned, every wall he dismantled, he wanted to tell her about it. Show her. Prove he was becoming the person she'd seen underneath the fear. He wrote her letters. Long ones, detailing every change. He never sent them. She'd asked him to leave her alone, and he needed to respect that. But writing to her felt like keeping a promise to himself. 8 weeks after that day in her apartment, Harrison sat with Dr. Kim reviewing his progress. "You've come a long way," she said. "How do you feel?" "Lighter, still scared sometimes, but lighter." "And Isabella?" "I think about her every day." "Have you reached out?" "No. She asked me to fix myself first. I'm trying to honor that." Dr. Kim smiled. "Maybe it's time to let her know what you've done. Not to get her back, just to show her you listened." That night, Harrison started a new letter. This one he'd send. He wrote for hours. 10 pages of careful script detailing every change, the cameras removed, the therapy sessions, the volunteering, the connections he'd made with staff, the walls coming down brick by brick. He ended with 6 words that felt both terrifying and true. "I need to see you again." He mailed it the next morning before he could change his mind. Have you ever changed yourself completely for someone? Torn down everything you thought you needed to become who you actually wanted to be? Tell me about your transformation. 3 months after that day in the Bronx, an envelope arrived at Isabella's apartment. Not money, not a job offer, but a handwritten letter. 10 pages of Harrison's careful script, detailing every change he'd made, every lesson learned, ending with 6 words that made her hands shake. I need to see you again. They met at a diner halfway between their worlds, neutral ground where neither wealth nor poverty defined them, just 2 people trying to figure out if redemption was possible. Isabella had read his letter 3 times before responding. 10 pages of Harrison's handwriting, detailing therapy sessions and removed cameras and volunteering at food banks, changes that seemed impossible for the man who'd fired her 4 months ago. She'd texted him 1 word: Tuesday. Now she sat in a booth at Annie's Diner in Stamford, exactly between Greenwich and the Bronx. Red vinyl seats patched with duct tape, coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since morning. The opposite of everywhere Harrison Caldwell usually existed. He walked in at 2 p.m. sharp. Jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit. He looked different, lighter somehow, less like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The diner smelled of bacon grease and burnt coffee, red vinyl booths patched with duct tape, nothing like the places where power brokers made deals, but Harrison had suggested it because he'd learned the lesson. The best conversations happen where pretense dies. Thank you for meeting me, he said, sliding into the booth across from her. Your letter was... Isabella paused, searching for the right word. Unexpected. Everything about this has been unexpected. He folded his hands on the table. I wanted you to know I've been working on myself, not because I expected anything from you, but because you were right. Walls don't protect. They just make your world smaller. A waitress appeared. They ordered coffee, small talk to fill the silence. When she left, Harrison continued. I started therapy. Dr. Patricia Kim. She specializes in trauma and trust issues. Turns out watching my father lose everything when I was 12 created patterns I've been repeating for 30 years. Isabella listened. He spoke for 10 minutes about the changes, removing cameras, connecting with staff, volunteering. Real changes, not just words. I'm starting a foundation, he said, for workplace equity, helping single parents access better jobs, better opportunities. I want you to help design it. Why me? Because you understand what it means to need opportunity instead of charity. Because you're brilliant at seeing systems that need fixing. Because... He stopped himself. Because what? Because I trust your judgment more than anyone I've ever met. The words hung between them. Isabella studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation. Found only honesty. When he reached across the table for the sugar, his wrist brushed hers. Brief contact that sent heat racing up her arm, his sharp intake of breath confirming he'd felt it too. Their eyes meeting and holding, the diner's noise fading away. I'm not looking for forgiveness, Harrison said quietly. I know what I did was unforgivable. I just want a chance to show you I'm becoming someone worth knowing. Isabella's throat tightened. I see the changes, Harrison. I do. But I'm scared. Sophia's in school. We're finally stable. I can't risk my daughter's future on someone who might revert back to being paranoid and cold. I understand. He nodded slowly. What if we start small? Coffee once a week. Talk about the foundation. See if the changes stick. Just coffee. Just coffee, for as long as you need. They talked for 2 hours. The foundation concept grew between them. Programs for childcare assistance, job training, healthcare access. Isabella's ideas merged with Harrison's resources. They sketched plans on napkins, argued about implementation, laughed at the same jokes. It felt natural, easy. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of rebuilding from ruins. When they finally stood to leave, rain had started falling outside, hard drops hammering the parking lot. Harrison pulled off his jacket without thinking. Here. I'm fine. Please." As they left the diner, rain started falling, and Harrison offered his jacket. A simple gesture that shouldn't have meant everything, but when she felt the weight of expensive fabric around her shoulders, still warm from his body, still carrying his scent, she realized she'd been lying to herself. This wasn't about forgiveness anymore. This was about wanting him. He called it a business proposition, but when he offered her the position of director of corporate culture at $240,000 a year, they both knew it was something else entirely, a bridge between worlds, or maybe just an excuse to see her every day. 6 weeks of coffee meetings, 6 weeks of foundation planning, 6 weeks of Harrison proving the changes weren't temporary. Isabella watched him carefully during those weeks, the way he treated waitstaff, how he listened when she talked instead of just waiting for his turn to speak, the patience when she disagreed with his ideas, the vulnerability when discussing his progress in therapy. He was different, genuinely different. Then came the email. "Formal meeting request, my office, Thursday at 2 p.m. Isabella's stomach twisted. This felt official, serious. Thursday afternoon, she walked into his Greenwich office for the first time since being fired. The space had changed. Fewer cameras, warmer lighting, family photos on his desk that hadn't been there before. His office had changed in 3 months. Fewer cameras, warmer light, a photo on his desk that hadn't been there before. Him and his late mother, the only person he'd trusted before Isabella taught him how to trust again. Isabella. Harrison stood when she entered, professional but warm. "Thank you for coming." "What's this about?" He gestured to a chair. She sat. He moved around the desk, leaning against it instead of sitting behind it. "Equals, not boss and employee. I want to offer you a job, director of corporate culture. You'd oversee the foundation we've been designing, plus implement workplace improvements across my company." Isabella's breath caught. "Harrison, the salary is $240,000 a year, full benefits. Sophia's college covered separately, not deducted from salary. Office here or in Manhattan. Your choice." The numbers made her dizzy. That much money would change everything. No more struggling. No more 3 jobs. Sophia could focus on school without worrying about their finances. But "This feels like guilt money," she said quietly. "It's not." Harrison's voice was firm. "You're the most qualified person I know for this role. You've lived the problems we're trying to solve. You understand systems that keep people trapped. And frankly, you're smarter than half my executive team. You're my former boss. Who fired me? People will talk. Let them. You earned this position by being brilliant, not by knowing me." Isabella stood, paced to the window. Manhattan's skyline stretched in the distance. From this office she could see both worlds, the wealth of Connecticut, the density of the city where she'd struggled for years. "If I take this job," she said slowly, "we need clear boundaries. Professional relationship only. No blurred lines. Agreed. I report directly to you but have autonomy in my department. You don't micromanage. Agreed. And if this doesn't work, if you revert back to the paranoid version, I walk away with 6 months severance and a reference letter." Harrison moved to stand beside her at the window. "You have my word. All of it in writing." They stood in silence for a moment. The city below bustled with afternoon traffic, people living their lives unaware of how this moment would change 2 specific lives forever. "Okay," Isabella whispered. "I'll do it." Harrison exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. He pulled a contract from his desk drawer. "Everything we discussed. My lawyer already reviewed it." She read through it carefully. Every promise in writing, fair terms, respectful language. When she signed the contract, he handed her a key to her new office. Their fingers tangled around the metal, neither pulling away immediately, the moment stretching as they both acknowledged what they were really doing, binding themselves together in ways that had nothing to do with salary or job titles. "Welcome to the team, Ms. Reyes." "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell." They shook hands, professional, proper. But the electricity between their palms told a different story. Her first day was Monday. They had 3 days before seeing each other daily. 3 days where Isabella lay awake at night knowing that working together would either heal them both or destroy what fragile trust they'd rebuilt. On Sunday night, Harrison texted 5 words that kept her staring at her phone until dawn. "I'm terrified of losing you again." Proximity broke them both, not because it was difficult, but because being near each other every day made pretending they felt nothing completely impossible. Isabella's office sat 3 doors down from Harrison's, close enough to collaborate, far enough to maintain boundaries. Those boundaries lasted exactly 2 weeks. The foundation project consumed them, designing programs, vetting partners, building infrastructure to actually help people instead of just throwing money at problems. They worked late most nights. The building would empty around 6 p.m., leaving just the 2 of them and the cleaning crew. The office at midnight felt like a secret space, city lights through the windows painting them both in warm glow and shadow, documents spread between them on the conference table, building something meaningful together. "What if we partnered with community colleges?" Isabella suggested during one late session. "Offer paid internships that turn into full-time positions." Harrison nodded, making notes. "And cover childcare costs during the internship period." "Exactly. Remove the barriers that keep single parents trapped in low-wage work." This was how they operated. Her ideas, his resources, his business knowledge, her lived experience. 2 pieces fitting together in ways that felt inevitable. But the work wasn't the only thing building between them. He'd rolled his sleeves up hours ago, tie loosened, and she couldn't stop watching his forearms as he worked, the flex of muscle as he wrote notes, until he caught her staring and smiled, not his polite business smile, but something darker, knowing, making her pulse race. "What?" he asked. "Nothing. You were staring. I was thinking. About how your hands would feel on my skin, about whether you still think about that electricity when we touched, about breaking every professional boundary we set. About the budget allocation," she lied. He didn't believe her. She could tell by the way his smile deepened. But he let it go. Staff started noticing their dynamic. Mrs. Chen, the house manager who now worked at the office too, would smile knowingly when she saw them together. Other executives whispered in hallways. "People are talking," Isabella mentioned one afternoon. "Let them. Harrison, you're exceptional at your job. Anyone who thinks otherwise can leave." His fierce defense of her made warmth spread through her chest. Nobody had ever protected her reputation like that, fought for her dignity in professional spaces. 3 months into working together, they launched their first program. 20 single parents hired into executive training positions. Full salary, benefits, childcare covered, education supported. The night they launched the Foundation's first program, celebrating success with champagne in empty offices, she laughed at something he said and touched his arm, just a casual gesture that froze them both. His hand covered hers instantly, not pulling it away, holding it there against his sleeve. "Isabella," he whispered, "I need to tell you something." Her breath caught. "What?" Before he could answer, her phone rang. Sophia's name lit up the screen. "I'm sorry, I have to—" "Take it," she answered. "Sophia, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Mom, I got the research position, the one with Dr. Chen at Columbia. It's paid and everything." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Baby, that's amazing." They talked for 5 minutes. When she hung up, Harrison was watching her with such tenderness it made her chest ache. "Good news?" he asked. "The best. She's thriving, Harrison. Because of you. Because of this opportunity you gave me. You earned it. Both of you." The moment hung between them, her hand still under his on his sleeve, their faces closer than professional distance allowed. "What were you going to tell me?" she asked softly. that I'm falling in love with you." His voice was steady. "Sure. And I know we said professional boundaries. But I can't pretend anymore. I think about you constantly. I dream about you. You're the first person I want to talk to in the morning, and the last voice I want to hear at night." Isabella's heart hammered. "Harrison, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." The night they launched the Foundation's first program celebrating success with champagne in empty offices, she laughed at something he said and touched his arm, just a casual gesture that froze them both. His hand covered hers, holding it against his sleeve, and he whispered, "Isabella, I need to tell you something." Before he could continue, her phone rang. Sophia, calling from Colombia with news that couldn't wait. The Foundation's 6-month celebration became the night they stopped pretending their relationship was purely professional, because need doesn't respect job titles or carefully maintained boundaries. The gala took place in a Manhattan ballroom, 500 guests, press coverage, politicians and business leaders celebrating their program's success. Isabella wore a dress Sophia had helped her pick, emerald green, elegant, expensive. Harrison had offered to cover the cost. She'd refused initially, then accepted when he'd pointed out it was a work event requiring appropriate attire. She felt transformed, confident, powerful. The gala ballroom glittered with Manhattan's elite, but when he took her hand for the traditional dance, the crowd vanished, just them swaying to music that seemed written for this exact moment. His palm pressed against the small of her back, her breath warm against his neck. Harrison had given a speech earlier, crediting Isabella publicly for the Foundation's design and success. The applause had been genuine, respectful. She was no longer his housekeeper. She was his equal, his partner in this work. "Dance with me," he said when the music started. "People will talk. I don't care anymore. Do you?" She took his hand, let him lead her to the dance floor. They moved together naturally, like they'd been dancing for years. His hand on her waist felt right. Her head on his shoulder felt like coming home. "You're beautiful tonight," he whispered. "Thank you. I'm not just talking about the dress. You're radiant, confident. Watching you command that room earlier, I've never been more proud of anyone." Isabella looked up at him. "I couldn't have done this without you. We did it together." The song ended. Another started. They kept dancing. Around them, cameras flashed, guests whispered, "Let them. This moment belonged to them." When the gala ended at 11 p.m., Harrison walked her to her car. "Come to my place," she said suddenly, "for coffee, or wine, or just come." His eyes darkened. "Are you sure?" "I've been sure for months. I just wasn't ready to admit it." They drove separately to her apartment, the same Bronx building where he'd found her 4 months ago. But she had a different apartment now, bigger, nicer, thanks to her new salary. In her apartment afterward, no pretense remained. "Tell me if you want me to leave," he said, voice rough. She answered by pulling him closer, her mouth finding his. The kiss was everything she'd imagined and more. Desperate, tender, consuming. He undressed her slowly, carefully like she was something precious, each piece of clothing removed with reverence. "You're sure?" he whispered against her collarbone. "I've never been more certain of anything." When they finally came together, it felt less like a first time and more like recognizing something that had always been there. Their bodies fit perfectly, moving together with an ease that suggested this had been inevitable from the start. Afterward, wrapped in sheets and contentment, she traced the scar on his shoulder from a childhood accident. "I love you," he said. No hesitation, no fear. She smiled against his chest. "I know. I've loved you since you showed up at my apartment broken and honest." His hand stilled in her hair. "Then why didn't you say anything?" Her answer changed everything. "Because I needed you to fix yourself first. Love shouldn't be about rescue. It should be about recognition. 1 year after he fired her for saving his life, they stood together launching a national program that would change thousands of lives. Because the best love stories don't end with, "I do," they end with, "we did." The press conference room buzzed with reporters and cameras, but Harrison only saw Isabella at the podium, confident and radiant, explaining their vision for workplace equity. The woman who'd cleaned his floors now commanding respect from the same business world that once ignored her. 12 months had transformed everything. The foundation now operated in 15 cities. 200 single parents hired into positions that paid living wages. Childcare programs serving 500 families. Healthcare access for thousands. But the real transformation was personal. Harrison had proposed 3 months ago. Simple proposal, no grand gesture. They'd been reviewing foundation reports in her office when he'd looked up and said, "Marry me." She'd laughed. "That's your proposal? We don't need grand gestures, we just need each other." She'd said yes immediately. Today, they were announcing their national expansion. 5-year plan to reach every major city. Partnership with federal programs. Bipartisan political support. Sophia sat in the front row, graduated from Columbia now, working at a nonprofit. She smiled at her mother with fierce pride. Between speakers, Harrison leaned close and whispered, "Move in with me. Not as an employee, not as anything but my equal. Build a home with me where walls are for shelter, not hiding." Her hand found his under the table, fingers interlacing. "Ask me again tonight when cameras aren't watching and I can show you exactly how I answer." The press conference ended with thunderous applause. Questions flew, about funding, about implementation, about their relationship. "Ms. Reyes, how did you go from housekeeper to director?" Isabella answered without hesitation. "I was always capable of this work. I just needed someone to recognize it instead of trying to rescue me. Real partnership isn't about saving people. It's about seeing their worth and giving them space to shine." Later that evening, back at Harrison's mansion, now their home, they stood in the kitchen making dinner together. Simple pasta. Wine. Music playing softly. "Remember when you first interviewed here?" Harrison asked, chopping vegetables. "I was terrified, desperate. Promised myself not to look you in the eyes. Why? Because I thought wealthy people only saw poor people as objects, tools, things to use. And now I know some wealthy people are just scared kids who never learned that connection matters more than control." She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "I'm glad you learned." He turned in her embrace. "I'm glad you taught me." They kissed, slow and deep, no urgency. They had time now, all the time in the world. "I love you," he said. "I know. I love you too." What does real partnership look like to you? When two people build something bigger than themselves? Tell me in the comments what legacy you want to create. So here's the truth. Love isn't about rescue. It's not about billionaires saving maids or maids saving billionaires. It's about two broken people choosing to heal together, building something beautiful from their wounds. Harrison and Isabella didn't just fall in love. They transformed each other. She taught him that vulnerability is strength. He showed her that worth isn't determined by wealth. Together, they built something that changed thousands of lives. Their story started with a safe, with secrets and fear and walls designed to keep people out. It ended with open doors, with trust, with the recognition that the most valuable things can't be locked away. If this story touched you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories where redemption is possible and humanity wins. Tell me in the comments, would you risk everything to save someone who might hate you for it? And remember, the most valuable things can't be locked in safes. They're found in moments of trust, in hands reaching across divides, in the courage to be seen. See you next week with another story that will make you believe in second chances.